Are you interested in angels, demons, spirits, ghosts, and monsters? Are you curious about their origins, tales, and influence upon history and on the present day? If so, sit back, relax, and welcome to Southern Demonology, the podcast that explores all of this and more. Hello all, welcome back to another episode of Southern Demonology. As always, I'm your host, JJ. Apologies for not being around much last week on our various social media platforms. And for those who don't know, we are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Podchaser, and TikTok. I think I named them all. Regardless, you can find all of that info either on the website, southerndemonology.com, or on our link tree that happens to be in the show notes. I actually had to go to Dallas for an internal team meeting. At first, I really dreaded going. After all, it's a 3.5-hour flight each way in order to attend a day and a half of meetings. Yet it was actually a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be. Primarily because it felt like the before times. You know, the before times, before the plague. No one wore a mask. We went out in public to do team building activities and eat in restaurants. In short, it was the most normal that I have felt in 2 years. But I didn't get back until Thursday morning. And of course, I spent the rest of the week digging myself out of the mountain of work that had accumulated in the meantime. Regardless, I have mostly accomplished that now, so expect my usual shenanigans from here on out. And speaking of shenanigans, I actually have 2 big announcements upcoming, the first of which will hopefully drop this week, so keep an eye out on social media for that. As always, and I know you probably hate me even saying it, join us on Wednesday for our regular movie night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time when we'll be watching We Go On. If you've never seen it, then come by our Discord server. I know you'll love it. And speaking of Discord, today's episode features another community spotlight feature as I interviewed Josh, aka Josh B93, who is a seminarian and assistant exorcist. And he goes over a case that he just worked, and I know that you'll be riveted. Yet if you'll indulge me, there's one more thing I'd like to throw into the mix. One night, while I was in Dallas, I happened to look at the stats for the podcast, and I was blown away. I actually had to call my family and deliver the big news. Now, normally this show gets around 800 downloads a week, but last week we nearly doubled those numbers, hitting around 1,460. Even more, Southern Demonology hit the milestone of 20,000 downloads since March. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of y'all for that. In this age where outrage and conspiracy theories garner all of the attention because that's what drives engagement, and those pesky algorithms are geared to promote just that, I am surprised yet humbled that anyone can put up with the sound of my voice. Nevertheless, keep listening. So from the bottom of my heart, thank y'all. You have made this little academic nerd very, very happy. So with all that out of the way, sit back, relax, and enjoy my interview with Josh in an episode I call The Shadows Were Laughing. Hello all. I have been able to secure a phenomenal interview today. Today we have with us Josh, also known by his Discord username of Josh B93, at least within our server. And he told a particularly harrowing tale, and I had to know more about it. And luckily, he agreed to come on and actually talk to us. But more than just the tale, Josh is also an exorcist, and I wanted to get all of the details around that to be able to share with y'all today. So, Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Well, I am really glad that you agreed to come on and talk to us a little bit. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, as JJ said, my name's Josh. I'm 29 years old. I'm a deacon in training. I'm currently in seminary working on to be ordained a priest eventually. I am a apprentice exorcist within our church, and I have a networking degree, and that's about it, really.
Is there any particular focus that you have in seminary?
Demonology and theology.
What kind of things have you been studying within the demonology side?
Really, it's kind of similar to yours. Second Temple, Judaism, and all that. The old Zoroastrian traditions.
Okay, since you also study some Zoroastrianism, I'm not trying to blindside you by any means of the word, but do you see a lot of correlation between Zoroastrian dualism and Christian dualism?
Yes, kind of, yes.
Okay, because that's something that desperately doing research on to try to get to the bottom of that. So it's good to hear that someone else, that I'm not just barking up a wrong tree. So, in terms of your religious tradition, can you give us a little bit of a detail about that? Because it's not the Catholic Church, right?
No, it's the Charismatic Episcopal Church. Of course, the word Episcopal means we're governed by bishops. We are a church that is three streams or a convergence worship church. We're a church that's fully evangelical, liturgical, and fully charismatic.
What exactly does that mean? Because for those who are not familiar with it.
Well, fully evangelical means we hold a high view of the Holy Scriptures in the Old and New Testaments. And liturgical means that we follow, sacrament of the Holy Eucharist. We use all seven sacraments. And the charismatic means that we believe in the gifts of the Holy Spirit, such as speaking in tongues and gifts of spiritual discernment.
Gotcha. And this is just me being curious.
Mhm.
Is speaking in tongues something that happens frequently in your services?
Yes.
Okay. I know some Protestant denominations lean heavily in speaking in tongues, some do not. That was just my own curiosity. There. Thank you very much for answering that one.
No, no
So,
problem.
how did you feel called to go to seminary and start to go along the path of becoming an exorcist?
Well, that's started when I was younger. I went through a dark time in my life, and I experienced the demonic and demonic attacks firsthand, especially the attacks on mentally. even physically at times. And that kind
Like,
of got me
how
in.
so, if you don't mind me? I'm not trying to get too much into your personal life by any stretch of the imagination,
Hmm.
but if you wouldn't mind, like, elaborating, I would love to be able to hear that.
The dark time of my life was where I was just dealing with. Of course, I didn't know it was a gift of discernment at the time, but just dealing with all the different emotions I would pick up from different people, and it would sort of stick with me, and that kind of overwhelmed me, and then I fell into a deep depression, and then all of a sudden I would start seeing things around the house and hear voices, and it would tempt me to do terrible things to myself and others. And luckily, though, I had my dad. Him being an exorcist, he helped me through that.
So you have the gift of spiritual discernment then?
Yes.
Has that grown as you have gotten older, or has it stayed about the same?
Oh, yes. It's definitely grown.
Wow. Okay. And for though I know that we have talked to one or two others that have had that same type of gift, but for those who may not have heard those particular episodes, would you mind just giving a brief definition of what spiritual discernment is?
Um, it's sort of it gives you insight into people and also the spiritual side of things. Like when we're doing house blessings, and I walk into a particular room, if there's something in there that's just not right, I would feel it. It would either I would get nauseous or it'd feel like a punch in the gut. That sort of thing would happen to
Gotcha.
me.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, so, uh, so you have this particular gift. I can see why that would have definitely sparked an interest in knowing more about the darker side of things. But what drew you into actively wanting to wade into spiritual warfare?
Assisting my dad, and plus the way he assisted me when I was younger, it's sort of it really imprinted on me, if you will. I was
Oh,
like, yeah,
I could
I want to
imagine.
do that one day. I want to help folks that go through similar things like I went through, and that's really what inspired me to get into it and get into the ministry and to learn more about the church, about the history behind everything.
Oh, that's wonderful. So, how I would imagine that your path along becoming an exorcist has not just involved classroom study, but also practical hands on. How many particular cases or, or events have you actively participated in at this point?
Lots, I would say in maybe the 30s, but
Wow.
most of them were just house blessings. Only three of them actually went into full exorcisms of a place or a person.
So, when it comes to exorcism of person, do y'all have any particular protocols around needing medical or psychological exams before you make a determination as to this may actually be a true case of possession?
Yes, I'm actually a certified EMT, and I am actually qualified to give psych evals. So whenever someone approaches us thinking that they may have something going on, we'll do a full psych eval on them before we go any further.
Okay. What are What are some of the red flags that you see if someone is truly suffering from a case of possession?
A lot of the times when someone's got a real case of it, they will, of course, have adverse reactions to any holy object near them. They won't even look at it. So when I'm doing a psych eval on someone, I'll wear my um, crucifix, of course. And if they can't even look straight at me or at the crucifix, that's kind of a red flag. If they're constantly having tremors in one of their limbs, that sort of thing.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking here.
I'm sorry.
So what is the protocol that y'all use in order to do a house blessing?
We'll generally show up. We'll do a walkthrough of the house, um, walk through while praying, and we'll talk with the family, and then we'll begin a small service. Really, and we'll go through, bless each room, and then celebrate Holy Communion.
Okay. Is there a difference in your view between a house blessing and an exorcism of place?
Yes, a blessing, house blessing is just a general blessing of the home, whereas the exorcism of a place or a thing, you're actually using the Roman rite of exorcism.
Oh, so you actually do use the Roman ritual then?
Yes.
Okay. I have heard from quite a few that the Roman ritual is not meant to be used as is, but is rather a blueprint that you use in order to perform either type of exorcism. Is that true to you?
Yes, we use it as a template.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's get back into this rather eerie tale. Because one night I was scrolling through Discord, actively chatting as we do, and then we get a message from you. Do you want to start going through the story?
Yeah, yeah. It was actually right after we got through. Me and Dad got to the hotel, and of course I write everything down just to keep a document. And I figured I'd share it with the server since get what y'all would think about it. And but it all began in August. My mom received a phone call from a family friend about her stepdaughter who was having some issues in her house. They had taken in a young teenage girl about 8 months prior to this, and turned out the girl was actually dabbling into the more darker side of the occult, and pretty much Satanism is what she was dabbling in. And so we called the stepdaughter and talked with her to get her account for everything, and then she actually offered to pay for the hotel room for us. So that sort of told me and Dad that she was actually serious about what was going on at the house, and she wanted us to drive 5 hours and pay for the hotel room. But we drove over there and met with them on the 29th, and we spoke with each family member individually to get their story about everything that was occurring.
Mm-hmm.
And every single one of them experienced similar things, random feelings of just anger, depression, um, seeing faces on the walls, objects moving across countertops. They had pictures that were actually screwed into the wall. And one day they actually left the house and came back, and the picture was on the wall, but the screws that were in the frame were on the floor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and their daughter, uh, she she had the worst of it, in my opinion. She was having she was being attacked in her sleep, in her dreams particularly. She was having vivid dreams of being murdered and being raped, and she actually felt it physically and emotionally. The events in those dreams.
Have you encountered anything similar to those types of vivid dreams in other cases?
No, this was actually a first for me.
Okay, yeah, because it was the first of me hearing of something like that, so I was really curious about that.
Yeah, it was actually a first for me. Um, so after hearing this, we agreed that something was going on, and we asked if we could walk around the house, and get a feel for each room,
Mm-hmm.
and we walked through all the different rooms. And once we get to the daughter's room, as soon as you walked over the threshold into her bedroom, you're just hit with a wave of just nausea. I mean, you wanted to vomit on the spot. And the air in that room was so oppressive. It felt like you weighed an extra 100 pounds.
And it was just centralized in that one particular room, right?
In that room and the room that the girl that they took in stayed in.
Gotcha.
And in the daughter's room, as we were looking around in there, we noticed that there was shadows that were moving around us, and a shadow figure was actually standing in the corner of the bedroom looking at us, watching everything that we were doing.
Is that a frequent occurrence in cases that you have dealt with?
Sometimes.
Okay.
And after that, Dad did we did a general blessing on her room just so she could get a good night's rest before the next day when we would actually do the rite. And we walked out of her room and into the spare bedroom where the girl stayed. And when you walked in that room, me personally, I was hit with just rage. Like my fist clenched up, and I just felt this unnatural rage just build up within me. And then I noticed in the room in the middle that the air was it's kind of hard to explain. The air in the middle of the room looked distorted, and it was sort
Mm-hmm.
of just swirling around almost like a small vortex. And it turned out that that particular part of the room is where they found the girl's Ouija board that she was playing with.
Mm.
So that told me right then and there that that door was still open.
Right.
And an interesting thing about that board, when they got rid of everything, they tried to burn the board, but the board didn't catch fire. The board, no matter how hard they tried, it would not catch flame.
That's never a good sign.
No. So they chunked it into the local dump. And
But by doing that, would that actually, I mean, that wouldn't actually serve to close any open doors, though, correct?
correct. That door would still be open.
Like, would you have preferred to still have that Ouija board on site? And if so, what would you have done to it? Because I'm just really curious about
M-
that.
Me personally, I would actually bless the board uh, and then burn it instead of
Mm-hmm.
just burning it outright. That's what I would do.
Yep, that makes total sense.
But
Okay, so you've encountered this distorted vortex in the middle of the room. What happened then?
I I motioned for Dad, and he came into the room, and I told him what was going on, and he actually blessed the center of the room. He had poured some holy water on it, and we said a blessing, and that actually closed it. I actually saw that distorted air just disappear. So that took care of one problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then we met with the family again, and we talked a little bit more about everything that we found, and then we left and went back to the hotel. And the next day is when we came back after the initial interview, and then started the actual exorcism of the house.
So the girl that was living there and seemed to be the root of the problem, was she exhibiting any strange behavior during the time that she was there?
Yes, the daughter actually told us that she had encounters with her. Um, the day before they actually kicked the girl out, the girl snapped, went to a random fit of rage, and the daughter went to her bedroom just to avoid the issue. And a couple hours later, the girl came to her bedroom door and knocked on it, and was, of course, in a fit, crying and apologizing. Then all of a sudden, it was like a switch flipped, and she just sort of smirked, looked at the daughter, and said, "You're gonna die here."
Oh Lord.
And then that's when they kicked her out. And as she was leaving, she looked at the family again and told them that they were all going to die with that same smile. But the father and the daughter noticed that the girl's eyes were black and her face was almost just sort of distorted, almost. So I believe the girl was actually possessed at that point.
That that honestly smacks really heavily of a possible possession. I mean, at least, I mean, if you go back, I don't know if you've read Hostage to the Devil by any chance.
Yes, it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, amen. Same thing here. But Zio and the Smiler, I mean, to see that kind of a distorted, impression on someone's face, especially as twisted as a smile, yeah, that just sends chills down my spine.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, but it was horrifying when she told us about it.
Okay, so you've conducted your interviews. You're back the next day. Did the girl in fact sleep easier with the blessing having been performed?
Yes,
Okay,
she did.
good.
She actually had a good night's sleep for once.
All right. So then, what happened after all that?
After after that, we met with them, and we gathered all our things, and we started the house blessing. We started in the living room, and we went to all the rooms in the house performing the rite of exorcism. And we reached the daughter's room again, and that feeling that was there before was a lot stronger, because it didn't like what we were doing one bit. And it was crazy because it seemed like the room got darker once you walked in there. It's like all the lights were almost being snuffed out by the just that presence. But as
So, do you think because the room darkened and the I guess the intensity ramped up that this was somehow either latched on or was targeting her
yes,
specifically? Okay.
yes, in fact, the family found the daughter was seeing a face in her closet, and the she told her mom about it. It was on the left side of the closet. They found it was a box that was hidden in the closet, and it actually had like a skull in it, like crystal skull just sitting there, and it wasn't the daughter's. and it had a little note of intention, and the girl was actually putting a hex on her.
And what is a note of intention?
It's a note that you would write. Well, like if you're doing a spell in particular, you would write the intention of what you want, and then put it in a box or a jar or bottle, and either bury it on someone's property or store it in a secret location in the home.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that intention can be for anything. It could be for good health. It could be, or it could be for something darker like death. Which in this case, it was it was death and sickness.
Okay.
But yeah, it was definitely targeting her, just because of everything going on and what they found in her closet.
Right.
And as we were going through the blessing, of course, we started feeling a lot like very, very sick, and like it was trying to make us sick enough to where we couldn't continue. And I had my eyes closed and was praying, and I could just feel it just circling around me and Dad, and it felt like it was sort of closing in on us. And then once we reached the towards the end of the blessing, it just dissipated, and then it went to the next room. You could see it too. It was like a flash of darkness. It just went to the next room, which was the spare bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to there, and once again, the room was just darker than usual. And as we were praying in there, you could just see in every corner there was 4 shadow figures, one in each corner of the room, and they were just watching us, and you can hear them laughing. They were mocking us and trying to discourage us in order to stop the riot. But the most interesting thing that happened once we got through in that room, we went to celebrate Holy Communion and finish everything up. And as we consecrated the bread and the wine and took part of Holy Communion, I heard a loud scream in the back of the room. It almost sounded like a banshee scream.
Mm-hmm.
Is exactly what it sounded like, all the way in the back of the house. And you could hear it move up the hallway and out the front door, and there was a loud bang, which confirmed to us that we had kicked it out.
That definitely sounds like a solid resolution.
Yeah. And that was the first time I ever experienced something like that, where you would just hear it scream and run out and just fly out the house. I never experienced that before until that day.
Gotcha. During any other, cases that you have worked, have you ever seen, I guess, what you would call or term gross displays of power by the demonic?
Yes.
Like, if you wouldn't mind, could you tell us a few? Because I really actually would love to start doing a complete catalog of these.
Oh yeah. One in particular, it was a 12-year-old boy. His mother had contacted our bishop in a panic, saying that he was possessed, and we interviewed the boy and confirmed it was a true possession. And during the exorcism, and this is a 12-year-old boy, he probably weighs 100 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I weigh about like 400 pounds. I got the advantage. And I'm there behind the boy, and I got my hands on his shoulders. I'm praying for him, but I'm also there for just in case purposes, because when you're doing an exorcism on a person, the demon, the possessed, will try to attack the exorcist. So I'm there just in case. And sure enough, the boy, he leapt out of the chair, and I'm holding him down with everything I got, and I'm still struggling to hold him down. He had that unnatural strength that no 12-year-old boy should have,
Right.
and he screamed. And when he screamed, it was it was like multiple tones at once, and
That would freak me the
yeah,
heck out.
yeah, it sure freaked me out.
Wow. So whenever you do an exorcism of person, do you typically ever restrain the individual, or do you and or clear the room of movable objects?
Yes, we do it in our actual church building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have a chair for them, but we don't use restraints. Mostly just either me or someone else would be next to them. So if they tried to move, we would put them back down in the chair.
Gotcha. Okay. And whenever I don't know if you or your father could attest to this, but one of the things that has always been of great interest is uh in Hostage to the Devil, Father Martin always referred to the clash, where you would enter almost like a psychic battle between the priest or the preacher and
Mhm.
the entity itself. Have you or anyone that you know who's in the same field, do they often experience this, or has it ever been experienced?
Not that I know about anyone else. Um, I know me personally, if while I'm praying, I can sort of, sometimes I can see a battle raging in my head while I'm praying.
Gotcha. Okay. And since you have wrapped up this particular blessing, has the house gotten, lighter and cleaner? Has everything seemed to have progressed well on that front?
Oh yes, almost immediately. When we got through with the blessing, the just looking at the family, they didn't have that darkened look in their eyes where they were just down, depressed, or anything like that. They actually had more light in their eyes. And,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yep. And we actually had the pleasure of baptizing their daughter and her daughter's boyfriend.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. So and everything worked out and got two people baptized. It was a wonderful time.
I could only begin to imagine. Well, is there anything else that you would like to share or go over? Anything that I particularly have missed during this conversation?
No, not at all.
Okay. Well, uh, as he's known on the Discord server, Josh B93 is a wonderful person to talk to, who actually has, a great deal of personal experience in these particular matters and areas. Is nicely educated in the field. It's always wonderful to see that, and we have all had such wonderful conversations. If you would like to join our Discord and participate in the same, whether it's just to lurk in the shadows or to be an active voice, we highly encourage it. The link to that is in the show notes. But Josh, thank you so much for agreeing to share this experience and some of your past and to help, get information out. But before we do go, I do have one last question for you. Let's
All right.
say that someone is suffering from what they suspect to be either a demonic infestation or oppression or obsession or worse. What are some of the protection mechanisms that you would recommend?
Well, I would recommend reading the Psalms. The Psalms will help a lot, and spending time with your family, reading your Bible, and in time prayer.
Mm-hmm.
That'll help a lot. Definitely finding a local pastor to bless your home, and getting more involved in the church. That'd definitely help.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's something that's not really spoken about a ton in this particular area, but kind of getting your own spiritual house in order definitely seems to be not only, it closes any or most avenues of attack, but
Mm-hmm.
it also helps to alleviate the entire situation, right?
Yep, definitely.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, it has been absolutely amazing to hear about this particular blessing, exorcism, cleansing, and eventual baptisms.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you for listening to Southern Demonology. Find us online at southerndemonology.com, where you can find all of our social and podcasting links. Also, if you have a moment, please feel free to rate this podcast and leave any encouraging feedbacks that you may have. As always, I am JJ, and it has been a pleasure getting to talk to you today.